Thomas's plan. One day, Thomas, Percy, James, Emily, and Gordon were wondering why Edward and Henry weren't at the sheds. Sir Topham Hatt had the answer. "I'm sorry, engines. I have signed an agreement with the ports of Africa and England, so I have no choice but to make Nia and Rebecca permanent residents on this railway. Be nice to them when they get here," added Sir Topham Hatt. "Please, work with them." "Oh, all right," groaned the engines. Later, Nia and Rebecca came to Knapford Station. "Hello," said Nia. "Hi," puffed Rebecca. Thomas pretended not to hear until he pulled out of the station. He arrived at Kirkmatchin Station. Goldie saw that Thomas was not happy. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nia and Rebecca replaced Edward and Henry at the sheds," puffed Thomas. "Oh, can I tell you a story?" asked Goldie. "Sure, go ahead," puffed Thomas. "All right," replied Goldie, and this is the story he told. Back when this railway opened for the first time, there were 5 of us engines, he said. Shane Dooney, me, Wilfred, Ernest, and of course, our number 1 engine, Godred. He, of course, was named after King Godred of Sodor. I believe it was this that made him one of many conceited engines this island ever knew. He was also naughty and reckless, known for coming down the mountain at a high rate of speed, Goldie puffed. We warned him several times, but, of course, he never listened. Eventually, his attitude got the better of him. On one of the railway's early days, Godred was coming down the mountain, being reckless like he normally was, chuffed Goldie. And then, it happened. Godred came off the tracks as his driver and fireman jumped clear. The coach remained on the tracks, which was lucky. But the same couldn't be said for poor Godred. He fell down the mountain. He was totally wrecked after his crash. Several days later, Godred was branded a waste of space at our sheds, so he was taken for scrap because this railway couldn't afford to fix him, puffed Goldie. That was some story, puffed Thomas. It sure was, Goldie replied, and Thomas puffed off. How about I make Nia and Rebecca fall down a mountain? Thomas puffed to himself. Annie and Clarabelle said nothing. Later, when Thomas found Nia at the yards, he wanted to say something to her. Can I show you something? Puffed Thomas. Sure, replied Nia. After Thomas switched to Nia's track, he coupled up to her and puffed away. There is an old bridge on the way to a quarry, and engines have to be careful when they cross it. Thomas furiously took Nia to the other side of the bridge. He reversed a few feet. Edward is better than you, he growled as he gave Nia a big biff. She was so terrified as she was falling down the mountain. Oh no, this is terrible, puffed Nia. Nia got to the bottom of the mountain. Ouch, that's gotta hurt, she groaned. Later, Thomas found Rebecca. He decided to show her the mountain line, so he pushed her all the way there. They soon got to the bridge. Thomas reversed several feet. "Henry is better than you," puffed Thomas as he gave Rebecca a big bump. As Rebecca tumbled down the mountain, her tender coupling broke. "Oh, why did this happen to me?" she wailed. Both Rebecca and her tender got to the bottom of the mountain. Nia heard the crashing sounds, and she didn't like them at all. Nia and Rebecca were totally wrecked beyond repair, so they stayed where they were for the rest of the day. That night, they were brought back. "I can't believe Thomas made us fall down that mountain," puffed Nia. "And you deserve it," boomed a voice. Nia and Rebecca knew it was Sir Topham Hatt. "I've been getting nothing but complaints about the both of you replacing Edward and Henry. We do have money, but not enough to fix you," he said, and he left. "That means we're due for scrap tomorrow," puffed Rebecca sadly. Everyone else was busy with their nighttime trains, so the only two engines in the sheds were Thomas and Gordon. Sir Topham Hatt came to see Thomas and Gordon. "Would you both like to take Nia and Rebecca away?" he asked. "Yes, please," they puffed. "I'll be at the back while Gordon is at the front," said Thomas. "And there will be a surprise for the both of you when you get back," continued Sir Topham Hatt. And so it was arranged. Thomas and Gordon coupled up to the flatbeds with Nia and Rebecca on them. Then they puffed off. Nia decided to speak. "We wanted to replace Edward and Henry so we can—" "Quiet!" snapped Gordon. "You both have been annoying me since you first arrived." "Besides," puffed Thomas, "Gordon and I wanted Edward and Henry back at the sheds." And he and Gordon continued on. After Thomas and Gordon arrived at the smelter's yard, Nia and Rebecca wanted them to come back, but the two blue engines weren't having any of it, and they simply left. "Oh no," chuffed Rebecca. Nia was also upset. "I think if we slept at different parts of the island, Thomas would not have made us fall down that mountain." Then they heard two horns in the distance. Harry and Bert had come for Nia and Rebecca. "Look here, Harry," wailed Bert. "Some fine-looking scrap here." "Agreed," breezed Bert. "They will have a nice home in our smelting shed." The two diesels took Nia and Rebecca away. Thomas and Gordon smiled their biggest smile when they saw Edward and Henry back in the sheds. "Let's have a party here," puffed Thomas. And so it was arranged. Donald and Douglas came. Oh, Edward and Henry. We all missed ya too, along with Thomas, Gordon, and everyone else here on Sodor, they said. And indeed, everyone did. Smudger and Bertram work it out. Smudger is a nice engine who is always happy to anyone he meets. And so is Bertram. He takes people to the old mine, which had been reopened as a tourist destination. But whenever they pass by, they always toss insults at one another. I know this, but hurry along, you fat road hog, puffed Smudger. Watch it, you green golf club, replied Bertram. Smudger saw Rosie and 87546 at the station, and the two engines were annoyed about it. Bertram's a nice engine, but you and him have been calling each other mean names because you two have the same face, puffed 87546. Then the three engines heard a whistle. Oh no, it's that burnt potato on wheels, said Smudger. Bertram came by. Can't you go by now, you stuck-up olive on wheels? He said. I hope he gets his comeuppance soon, puffed Smudger. After Rosie and 87546 left, Smudger's driver came. There's an emergency further down the line, he said. Bother, puffed Smudger, and he raced off. When Smudger arrived on the scene, he felt bad for his earlier behavior. I'm sorry for how I acted, he said. That's all right, replied Bertram. I'm sorry for the same reason. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure, Smudger replied. How about we put our name-calling ways behind us and be friends? Bertram asked. Nice idea, said Smudger. He switched onto Bertram's line and buffered up to the back of his train. Then the two engines set off. Let's get to your destination, Smudger said. When they arrived, Omri was waiting at the old mine as well. Why is there two engines on a train with two coaches? He asked. Bertram ran a hot box, so I had to help, Smudger replied. That explains it, Omri replied. Mr. Percival arrived. Smudger, you are a really useful engine. You made Bertram's passengers happy. Would you like to cover for him? He asked. Oh yes, puffed Smudger. That night, when Bertram came back from the works, Smudger welcomed him back. Then, the two engines decided to talk to one another, unaware that Albert's ghost was staring at them. Two new engines. Sir Topham Hatt brought two engines to Sodor on trial. One is an LNER B12 painted yellow and was named Georgie. She is sweet but is prone to anxiety. The other is an LNER V2 that is painted red. Her name is Agatha, who is rude and arrogant. While you both are here, I hope you two be really useful, because I don't keep engines who don't do as I say, he said. Yes, sir, said Georgie. Agatha didn't say anything. Then Sir Topham Hatt left. Why didn't you say anything? Said Georgie. Ugh, why did I have to come to this hand-me-down island? Said Agatha. This is all with out-of-date items. They're not out of date, Georgie puffed. What's the noise? Said Edward as he came in. Oh no, said Agatha. Now I see a goody two-wheels engine and a rusty old teapot. I'm the better engine, said Agatha as she left in a huff. Edward puffed closer to Georgie. Never mind her. Just try to avoid her, he said. Soon, Georgie was working hard, and she was enjoying it. Later, Gordon had to go to the works to be fixed. Don't worry one bit. I'm sure Agatha would do a good job with the express, said his driver. Soon enough, Agatha was coupled up to the express. This reminds me of when I pulled express trains on the other railway, she puffed. Just then, the conductor's whistle blew. Agatha gave a toot of her whistle. Then she puffed off with the express. Agatha chuffed down the line at top speed. This is great, she said. She was enjoying herself immensely. but no one else was. Later, Georgie was at the station with her passenger train. "It's amazing to be really useful," she said. Then, Agatha came in with the express. "Yes, 4 minutes early. That is good," she said. Georgie was cross, and so were the passengers, who went at Agatha like angry bees. "That was a messy trip," shouted one group. "I got tea on my shirt because of how fast you went," said another. Everyone was saying, "This is a bad railway," to Sir Topham Hatt over a telephone. Later, Sir Topham Hatt was cross with Agatha. "You've caused trouble by upsetting the express passengers and going at reckless speeds," he said. "She also called Georgie a goody two-wheels engine," said Henry. "Agatha also called Edward a rusty old teapot," puffed Thomas. "Did you hear that, Agatha? You will stay where you are as punishment," said Sir Topham Hatt. While Agatha was sitting there, she thought about a plan to get back at Thomas and Henry. Later, Sir Topham Hatt spoke to Georgie. "Because you were working hard," he said, "would you want to become a permanent member of my railway?" "I'd say yes," puffed Georgie excitedly. She was here to stay. Meanwhile, Agatha was coming down the line. "My revenge on Thomas and Henry will be known," she said. After the first tanker derailed, something happened. Thomas and Henry were upset when they saw the burning wreckage of Agatha. "Oh my," said Henry, "I'm still upset about this, even though Agatha tried to murder us," said Thomas. The two engines realized one thing as they left. Agatha was dead. Later, Belle and Flynn put out the fire before it spread. Georgie heard about what had happened, and she was anxious. Will Agatha come back as a ghost engine? She wondered. That might be the case, said Thomas and Henry. The three engines remained silent for a while. "Can Henry and I be friends with you?" said Thomas to Georgie. "Of course," said Georgie. The three engines are now good friends. After that, Agatha's remains were taken away to be scrapped, and this made Edward feel bad, but he knew that he had to do it to be a really useful engine. No one knew this, but the ghost of Agatha was sitting in the same scrapyard Oliver was at.
Just you wait, Georgie,
said Agatha in her ghostly demeanor.
I'm coming to spook you, along with sending Thomas and Henry to their graves for what they did to me.
She cackled. A ghostly visit. One night, Smudger was waiting at a siding. It'll be a few minutes before the workmen fix the points, he said. Then, Smudger was shuddering when he saw a ghostly figure. Then, the figure disappeared. "Did you see that?" asked Smudger. "Yes, although I can't tell whose ghost it was," said the driver. Then, after the points were fixed, Smudger left the area, feeling very anxious. The next day, Smudger told Sir Handel about his encounter last night, but he wasn't believing anything. "Ugh, all this paranormal nonsense has got you all stuck up," said Sir Handel. "It's true, I saw a ghost," said Smudger. "This is paranormal nonsense," puffed Sir Handel, and he left to collect his train. Sir Handel was anxious even when he stopped on the old iron bridge. "Why did you stop?" his driver asked. "That might be what Smudger said is true," Sir Handel replied. It was the ghost Smudger told him about. "Hello?" he said. "Oh, hi," said the ghost. Do I know you?" Sir Handel asked. "Of course. I'm the man that used to run the Sodor Railway." "Well then, why are you a ghost?" Sir Handel asked. "After I turned Smudger into a generator, Albert was upset, which meant when I came on his passenger train, my fate was sealed," said the ghost. "When Albert came off the tracks and fell, I suffered blunt force trauma and was pronounced dead on my way to the hospital," he continued. Then the ghost of the Sodor manager vanished, and Sir Handel continued on with his work. Later, Smudger and Sir Handel told Duke about the encounter from their old railway, about the manager from their old railway's ghost. "The story about the Sodor manager being dead because of Albert is true," replied Duke. Then the MSR manager's ghost popped up. "It's him," said Sir Handel. "The ghost of our old manager," puffed Smudger. something I want to tell Smudger, said the MSR manager. What is it? Puffed Smudger. Listen, I'm sorry I turned you into a generator. I should have known all you wanted to do is to be really useful before I died, thanks to Albert, the MSR manager replied. There was a long silence. You, said Smudger, you are forgiven. The MSR manager's ghost walked to Duke. I had second thoughts about turning Smudger into a generator while I was in the afterlife, and so I shall move on and find peace, he said. Then the MSR manager vanished into the night. So, it was my brother Albert that ended our previous owner's life, and the only way he could move on is by Smudger forgiving him, said Sir Handel. That's right. I think that there is another mid-Sodor engine still out there, said Smudger. Right you are, said Duke. The 3 engines realized that was true. But that's another story.
As you go from day to day, looking for a better way, and you think you've got it all under control. So you bend the rules a bit as you try to make things fit, but you know you should be doing as you're told. Although sometimes you find it so hard, and the wrong way may seem easy.